I make that about 1 o'clock. So, hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Canny Commuting, the webinar series that gives you the skills and confidence that you need to try walking, cycling, or commuting to work. Canny Commuting has been brought to you by My Journey Hampshire in association with Sustrans and is funded by Highways England. My name's Andy. I'm going to be your host today. So welcome back to everyone who's been with us for the last couple of weeks. I have been walking, cycling, and using public transport in Winchester, Southampton, Portsmouth, Eastleigh, and various places around this world for about the last 15 years. So I'm quite comfortable with the notion of active travel commuting in this area. And in my spare time, I'm also a cycle guide and coach. Today, we are going to be talking about how to arrive smart, or as I've been calling it for the last couple of days, cycling without showers, because I quite like that. For those of you who know me quite well, you will be aware that being smart isn't necessarily one of my strongest suits. So I'm going to introduce you to two people who are much more capable of talking about being smart and arriving smart at work than I am. But before we do that, I have two quick requests for you. Firstly, we are filming today. And so if you would like for your face not to appear on the film when this goes up on YouTube, please turn your cameras off. And secondly, it's really, really helpful to us and justifies what we're doing to our funders if you can put which workplace you work from. I know that one of you has done that already. If you can stick it in the chat, that really, really helps us in terms of knowing who we've been talking to today. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Anna, who is going to be one of our contributors today. Anna, please tell us about yourself.
Thank you. So yeah, my name is Anna. I am a workplaces officer, part of the My Journey team. And what that means is that I work with local businesses and staff at local businesses to help them travel more sustainably, particularly active travel, so walking and cycling. So we're interested in helping everyone with their commute, but if it also pulls out into the other parts of their life, that's even better. And also helping businesses move to more sustainable business travel and moving of goods and that type of thing. The reason I'm getting involved today is throughout most of my career, I have done a variety of different ways of getting to work. Done bus, tube, train, driving, and in the last 10-15 years it's been mostly walking and cycling. I wanted to come and chat today partly because when I first started cycling to work, my default reaction was to have a shower, get a change of clothes when I arrived at work, and it was just what I assumed I would have to do, that it would be necessary. And then over time I've realised that actually that isn't always necessary, and there's lots of things that you can do that might change the need of whether you feel like you want to shower and change when you're at work. And that's what I want to share today.
And our other contributor for today is Natalie. Natalie, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, so I'm Natalie. I work for Sustrans in Hampshire area, and I don't really see myself as a cyclist. I do a lot of cycling just to get from A to B, and that's not, I'm not somebody who wants to get ready twice. So for me, it's really important that I can arrive as I set out, and I don't have to start again when I get to the office, unless it's a very, very sort of long, very fast journey that I'm doing. So yeah, I've got quite a bit of experience of doing that and arriving to various meetings and things with trying to dress appropriately for the meeting. So I'm happy to chat about my experience anyway.
Fabulous. Before we get started, we're going to give you 15 minutes to talk to us about dressing smart on the bike. But before we do that, if you have any questions for Anna or Natalie that you'd like them to answer, or, you know, God forbid, if you want me to answer questions, please stick them in the chat and we'll come to them at the end. So we've got about 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. I'm going to unpin myself so that we can see the two of you better. So if you'd like to take it away, now is fabulous.
So I'll make a start, and just as an introduction, really, the way we've thought about it is thought about things where we might have gone wrong in the past, where we were cycling to work or meetings that we have learned from and think, oh, actually now I'm going to do it slightly different way. So we're passing on just things we've learned. They might not all apply to you. It probably depends on the type of job you're doing. It probably depends on how long your commute is. But there's things that you might want to pick up that might be helpful for you, and other things that might not be appropriate. So it's also worth bearing in mind that there's quite a few things we might go through today, but don't feel you have to memorise them all. Pick what's for you, and also you'll notice that over time it becomes habit. So it's something that you don't really need to think about too much or plan, in the same way that if you were to walk to work or walk to the shops, you might look out the window first, you might think about what the weather's like, you might think about what shoes to wear, what layers to wear. There's a bit of that goes on, but as you've probably found with just leaving the house, generally these things become second nature. So that's what we're hoping to help do today. One of the first things I wanted to focus on was around the bike and thinking about how your bike can make it easier for your commute, and particularly today, because we're focusing on arriving, being sort of smart, being ready to start work. We're looking at things that avoid you getting hot and sweaty, so avoid making cycling hard work, and also things that avoid you getting wet or muddy or in any way disheveled from your bike ride. So that's going to be sort of where we focus on a bit more today. So I'll start by talking about my bikes, and I've got my bike behind me as a bit of a demo to use. So the first thing to bear in mind is that if possible, if you're buying a new bike or you've got a choice of bikes, probably aim for one that's relatively light and that has a good range of gears, so that it's making it fairly easy on yourself. Well, another important thing to think about is mud guards. So if you are in your work outfit for the day, you'll want to think about having good mud guards that keep you from getting splashed if there is any rain or mud on the road. So that's another thing that can be really helpful. Also, just generally keeping your bike reasonably clean if you can is helpful. It avoids you picking up on your clothes any little bit of oil or dirt that might be on your bike. So if it gets a bit muddy or a bit dirty, if you can give it a quick clean, that's also minimising the chance of getting any marks on your clothing. I won't go through the safety checks that we often do before we start cycling to work, but I think Andy might put actually in the chat, we have done a couple of weeks ago a whole session about checks you can do on your bike. But what I want to focus on today is things that might make it harder and that you might get a bit hotter and sweatier if they're not quite right. So one thing to check is that, this is a mistake I have made and took me a while to realise it, check that your wheels are turning easily and that they're not catching on your brakes in any way. So what you want to do is just lift your bike up and give your wheel a spin round, and the wheel should keep spinning at a reasonable rate and not stop. And also just listen out as well. You'll hear probably if it's catching, and you can have a look. If something like that is happening, it's worth getting sorted, either taking a look yourself or taking it to your local bike mechanic, because it can make it so much harder work and you really are huffing and puffing, and it's just you battling against the bike really, and it makes it unnecessarily harder. Other things to bear in mind are just keep your tyres fairly well pumped. So as Ray said in the session the other day, we want them to feel a bit like an apple would, and that really makes a difference. We quite often find when people come out riding with us maybe for the first time, their tyres might be a little flat. Once they get pumped up, it's almost like they get a new lease of life, and there's a real bit of extra energy that can come from having that. Makes life quite a bit easier. So that's worth thinking about, just things that might make it a little bit less hot and sweaty, a little less mucky in terms of your bike and what choices you make there. The next bit I wanted to talk about just briefly was thinking about your route that you might ride into work. If you've not ridden into work before, it's worth a bit of thought, because there are lots of different options. And again, I think we had a session on this just last week. You don't have to cycle the way you drive in. Have a think about the routes you know, and you might want to vary it on the day. If it's a hot day, you might want to avoid that big hill that you have, or you might want to choose a route that's nicely shaded by trees. If it's a bit of a wet and windy day, you might want to avoid an area that you know it floods. So just sort of look at different options and think about it depending on the day, where might be best for you. Next, I just wanted to touch on bags really and carrying things. Again, because we're doing a few of these sessions, we're going to cover carrying heavy loads on your bike in a future session, but just wanted to touch briefly on some of the options today. So probably the first thought for a lot of people is it's quite useful to have a rucksack. To carry everything. It means obviously you can be hands-free and it's out of the way of most of your body, it's just on your shoulders, and you can get sort of covers that go over the top of your bag, which are good for visibility. That, however, can make you a little bit hot and sweaty, so particularly if you're wanting to arrive at work and just stay in the same clothes. So there's a few other options. Natalie is kindly gearing up for looking at her panniers there. So you can have a bike rack attached to the back and put your panniers on there. And that's a really good way of keeping anything you carry, so that can fit in laptops or paperwork you need, quite a bit of extra equipment in there, and it keeps it away from you. It keeps you light and cool and airy as you're cycling. And other alternatives, if you don't need something that big, is you can have either bags attached here or bags on the top of the bike racks or on the front of the bag on the bike handlebars there. There's lots of different options available, and it gives you a few different places to carry things. So you can certainly start with a rucksack, but if you find it's a bit hot and sweaty, there are other options available. At that point, I think I'll start moving on to clothing type things, and maybe now is a good time to hand over to Natalie, if that's all right, and we can start.
Yeah, okay, so I think we're going to go through this together, aren't we? But what I thought about was starting from the feet, because for me, if I'm getting dressed, often it's the shoes that dictate the rest of the outfit, so it also makes sense to go in order. Quite often people think that they have to wear trainers. You don't have to wear trainers to ride a bike. It depends how fast you are. You have to be comfortable. And I also would recommend just trying whatever shoes that you are intending to wear first on the bike, because I prefer something like this if I'm cycling and trying to look smart. But if you have a think about some of the shoes that you wear for walking and sitting might be appropriate, but actually to get on a bike is very different, because you're having to put your foot down on the floor to at lights or to stop. And very often I found that with something like this, which seems perfectly comfortable and flat and suitable, actually falls off my foot when I'm cycling, and I can leave it behind, which is not ideal. And the other thing, it's really slippery on the pedals. So in fact, something possibly that looks less suitable, even with a heel, can be better. I don't recommend cycling in heels, but I have done it, and it is possible. But you tend to have to put the pedal in between the heel and the front of the shoe, which is not an ideal riding style. So I wouldn't go very far like that. And it's a bit like driving in heels. It's something that you either want to do or you don't. The other thing is make sure the heel's not too high, because when you're turning the pedals, they can touch the floor, which you don't want at all. The other thing is you have to, when buying shoes, when you know that you're going to be cycling, you have to pick the pedal up with the front of your foot to make sure that the pedal is in the ready position to go again. So the front of your shoe can easily get damaged. So you just have to make sure it's something that's not going to get caught, and it's not going to get damaged by the pedals as well. Okay, is there anything else on shoes, Anna, that I've missed?
I don't think so. I think that's it. So I think we're going to move.
Oh, and laces.
Oh, laces. Yes, good point. Yes, I think our general recommendation is that if you have got shoes with laces on that you're cycling in, that they get the end of the laces get tucked in, so that they're not loose or potentially getting caught in any of the moving parts of the bike.
super. Okay, so kind of moving on up. Again, trousers are obviously really practical, and when you have to think about leaning forward with your clothing, so it's not just about standing and sitting like you would do with most clothes, but also leaning forward. So something that is not going to restrict you too much at the front, and that isn't obviously going to like expose you at the back. So something that's perhaps got a bit of elasticated waist perhaps, or some stretch in it somewhere is also really nice. But you don't have to stick to trousers if you want to wear skirts and dresses. I've cycled in all of these things behind here, and if you can see, they've all got room to move. If you've got something very tight, it's almost impossible. But if it's got a bit of stretch or it's a bit floaty and doesn't get caught in your bike, then that works too. I have got some decathlon shorts that I put underneath if the skirt is a bit shorter, and I either leave it on or I can take it off when I get to work. In terms of tops, again, leaning forward. So if you've got a shorter top, it's going to ride up to the back, which is why a lot of cycling tops have a longer back, but you can get a longer back on lots of different tops. It doesn't have to be specific to cycling. And also when you're wearing a shirt or a blouse, again, sitting, standing is all right, but if you lean forwards and put your arms forward, sometimes it's quite restrictive to wear some of the smarter shirts. So just make sure that you can do that and you're not restricted in your movement. I also have got, very importantly, if it is raining, you don't have to hide away. You can still get smart and arrive smart because of waterproofs, and a wonderful invention. I've got my trusty waterproofs here, and cycling tops the longer back. And I have arrived very dry despite wet weather several times before now. So I definitely recommend getting a decent pair of waterproof trousers and a decent waterproof coat.
Just to add to that, Natalie, around visibility, because I know some people are want to be very visible at the same time. But one tip I've got, which I find quite useful for the summer, when you don't want a high waterproof jacket on or a windproof jacket that might be just too hot, is I just a very light layer that I put over my normal clothes if I just feel like I'm in an area where I need good visibility, and it's just up really small, so it's something that you can keep in your bag and just use as and when. So if you just feel like you just need to be a bit more visible sometimes, then that's there as well. And I think one other thing to add in terms of regulating temperature that I found is that I find the sort of accessories can be really good at helping me for different parts of a journey where I might be hotter or colder. So sometimes when I start off, I'm a little bit cooler, and I get warmer as I go along or hit a hill, and then towards the end I might get cooler again and my body temperature changes. I find taking my gloves on and off can help regulate my overall body temperature, and also if you have a sort of snood or buff that you can wear, sometimes you can start off with that, and then that's one easy thing to remove as you keep going, but the rest of your outfit can stay the same. So there's a few different ways of using layers to sort of regulate and keep yourself the right temperature.
Yeah, the thin buff as well can be useful if you've got long hair and you want to kind of keep it out of the way, but also if you've done it in a style, if you put the buff over your head and then pull it back over so it's kind of from here and goes all the way over your hair, it can protect it from kind of getting too wet and windy and blown about, but also stops that sort of line you get around the back of your head. So it's quite useful for that as well.
Natalie and I were talking earlier briefly about how to solve helmet hair, I think, and we came to the conclusion that there's not necessarily a sort of perfect solution, and it might depend on different people, and everyone's hair is different and behaves in different ways. There are a few tips around. What I find for me is if I actually tie my hair back in some way first, or even just sort of fold it around my head so that it's tucked out of the way, it means it's sort of less windswept once I'm riding, and as I take the hair off, it seems to have stayed in a relatively similar position. But I know it's going to be different for different people on that one.
I found that trying to make it curlier rather than straighter helps, because you don't notice if it's very, very dead straight, then you will notice anything that the helmet does to it. You can of course get sort of portable hair straighteners if you just want to do a quick top up after you've arrived. But yeah, if you start off not trying to make it straight, it does help sometimes as well. And in terms of sort of from the neck up, so we've got I've got this on the front of my helmet. Most helmets do these days, but it's really, really helpful if it is raining a little bit, because it will stop some of that rain going into your face, especially if you've got makeup on. And the other thing is eye protection, because you tend to get the eye streaming thing if you've got a lot of wind in your face or rain, and then you can get the mascara stripe, so you look a bit like a badger. But if you've got some eye protection on, that really helps.
I think that's all I can think of at the moment on clothing, but it looks like there's some questions coming into the chat. I think there was just, if we've got enough time, Andy, one other thing I wanted to mention before we wrapped up.
Yep.
Was just to say, don't hurry on your journey. Sort of have an estimate of how long it's going to take and add on some extra time. The best thing you can do is not try and race it or rush it. Allow yourself to sit back and enjoy it, and maybe not go the speed you would if you were trying to exercise at the weekend. Take your time, and particularly the last 5 minutes or so of your journey, slow down. I think we've probably all seen it, colleagues arriving at work and they walk into a heated office and suddenly you get very warm because you've been out in the cooler air and you've been moving. Allow your body that time to sort of slow down and acclimatise. Don't rush yourself is the best way, because then you can just slow down or even stop and get off for a bit and stand in a cooler area if you've got the time to do that.
Yeah, as someone who is forever arriving somewhere late, I couldn't agree with that more. And in addition to that, there is a phenomenon that everyone who's ridden their bike everywhere will know, is you're riding along and everything's fine, and the moment you get off, it's like someone's turned the temperature up by 10 degrees. So that cooling down as you arrive at somewhere so that you don't arrive hot can actually be really helpful. We have had some questions. We've had all sorts of stuff. Rebecca's question about what employers can do, I'm going to come back to that towards the end, because that could be quite a complicated issue. And failing that, we can get in touch with you direct and actually talk about this for a bit longer. Helen has asked if there is an app to do with route planning. For those of you here with us last week, you'll find that I bored everyone to death with all sorts of stuff. So if you go to myjourneyhampshire.com/Canny Commuting, the previous week's videos are all there. So the same goes for the M-check as well. So if you want to know how your bike is safe, the two videos from the previous weeks are there. What have we got next? We got one from Tim. And Ray's had a go at answering this. Do you recommend single panniers or two for balance? Does anyone have any thoughts on this one?
I don't find it a problem to have one. The most unbalanced I've been on my bike is when I've had a child on the back and they've been sleeping like this. Make a move, but panniers haven't ever been a problem, being heavy on one side or not. It's fine.
Yeah. I find the same thing. I often travel with just the one pannier. Sometimes if I've got a load of heavy shopping in the one pannier I've got along with a lock, and I decide that I'm going to chill out and take my hands off the bars, I will notice it's slightly unbalanced. But kind of riding along, I don't find it's particularly an issue. What we got next? Right. Again, someone has asked about the kinds of panniers. Do either of you have any recommendations on the panniers to get?
I think I saw it pop up, but Ray put something in the chat. But I haven't got a huge amount of experience with panniers, but the ones I do have are amazing. They are from the Sustrans shop, and they are waterproof. And you can carry them with a shoulder strap. And you also can get an attachment to carry it as a backpack if you want to. I haven't. It's like a wet bag or dry bag, as it's called when you wrap up the top, and it's really, really good and holds a lot.
Yeah. I can't recommend the Ortlieb ones highly enough. Again, obviously I've had a staff discount on these, but my wife has a set that she bought herself and she thinks they're brilliant. I've ridden with other ones that claim they're waterproof for years. They all lie, right? Yeah, if I'm riding with something that hasn't got the rubberized outside on it, wrap your stuff in a plastic bag because it's going to get wet. So we all swear by these. They are bomb-proof. You know, they get thrown in the back of vans and in cupboard corners and on trains, and they come up looking absolutely fine. And that shoulder strap is a real godsend for just lift it off and carry it into work at the end. So someone likes your recommendation on shorts, Natalie. Anyone got any thoughts on waterproof trousers?
Mine are Endura. I'm sure there are plenty of good makes out there. I'll just check that's true. One thing I do find that is useful is to look for ones that can go tighter at the base, because you don't want them flapping around. So some of them will actually kind of flap around your leg, which isn't ideal when you're cycling. So it's nice to be able to either have a Velcro or this has got both Velcro and poppers, I think, and it just makes it tight around your leg. And also it's got this extendable bit. I don't really know what it's for, but on me, I don't know if it's because I'm short or not, when I undo it, it goes nicely over my shoe without getting sort of caught. So maybe
I think that's what it's supposed to be for.
It is it? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
It goes lovely over my shoe. It keeps me nice and dry. So yeah, definitely one to look out for there. Yeah. Endura.
Yeah, I have to confess, I've never found a pair of waterproof over trousers that I've got on with. When I'm riding for pleasure in the winter, I've got a pair of trousers that are waterproof, but I wouldn't wear anything underneath them because they're cut like an ordinary pair of trousers. They look a bit like a kind of pair of tracky bottoms, really. But they're great, but they're not they're change out of when you get to work. We've had a question from Ray, and I suspect all of us will struggle to answer this. Any recommendations for glasses that steam up? My recommendation for glasses that steam up, and I am a glasses wearer, but I never wear them on the bike. I years ago I used to ride in glasses, and going to contact lenses absolutely changed my life. It just made everything so much easier. If you are not someone who is willing to or is able to wear contact lenses for various kind of prescription reasons, relatively small relatively small lenses is quite good, because you need to have the airflow around it, and you will also always find on a kind of humid day they will always mist up when you stop at the traffic lights. It's just going to happen. Give them a quick wipe. There are loads of products on the market that claim to be magically stopping your lenses misting up. They're all rubbish. I tried loads of them and none of them work. But yeah, I don't know if either of you have any recommendations on that.
Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, likewise. Something I use a lot.
Super. We've had also a question about dry shower products. Anyone use dry shampoo at all? I
mean, my colleagues might disagree, but I've never felt that I needed it. I think if you follow the advice that Anna gave about just taking it steady, leaving yourself longer, you can always stop. If you're getting too hot, just take it really easy. And I just found that I've not needed that kind of thing. So I've not actually tried any of those products. For me, cycling somewhere, because I don't go hundreds of miles, is like walking somewhere. So I see it in very much the same way, that I don't have to kind of make a big effort when I arrive. It's just as if I just walked to the location. So sorry, not helpful on the product side.
No, that's perfectly good. I'm sorry, I've just run away because we've had a question that the answer to is in another room. It was from Rebecca about carrying laptops. We all at Sustrans have to go out with our laptops to workplaces when we work with them. Do either of you two have recommendations on making sure your laptop arrives in one piece?
We have,
Oh,
sorry, Anna.
no, go on.
We have some zip covers for our laptops that are provided through work, which provide some impact protection. But I find that once it's in one of these bags, it's absolutely fine. I've never had a problem with it not working or getting wet or being shaken about too much. I don't know about you, Anna, if it's the same.
Yeah, very much the same thing. I think what I'm conscious of is not, if it is a bag with other things, trying to not have anything too sharp or scratchy near it as well. I just think about sort of what's around it, and if I have got a sort of extra layer of clothing I'm sort of keeping in my bag, I might also sort of put that around it. So when I place it in the bag, I sometimes think about what it's alongside, and if I've got extra water in there, I'm just a bit cautious about, you know, what things are together really. That would be the only thing I'd add.
Yeah, I mean, just follow on.
Neoprene, I think.
Yeah, this is a neoprene one. This is not one that Sustrans gave me. This is one I bought for myself. And inside most panniers there is a slot for putting stuff in. Which kind of probably can't see it very well in there. But if you slot it in that slot so it doesn't move, it's not rattling against anything. And I take my own laptop. I take my work laptop. And it's never been a problem. We have run slightly over time, but there's a couple of quick ones to cover. The first is thanks, Tim, for the product placement. We don't have, as far as I'm aware, discounts on the Ortlieb panniers. If I had mine taken away from me by Sustrans, I would totally pay money for them. Seriously. But yeah, go looking for discounts for them. We do when we go out to workplaces, we can do kit sales of stuff. Ray has suggested an e-bike as a way of getting less sweaty, which is quite a high investment solution to your problem. Can I get funding for shower facilities for my company? Yes. Please get in touch with us at workplaces@myjourneyhampshire.com, which is the workplaces. Or if you want to reach out via social media, my Twitter handle is SustrandsAndy. Natalie, you've got a Sustrans handle as well, haven't you?
Sustrans Natalie.
We spent ages thinking of these. And on the subject of what we recommend for employers, I'm trying to remember who it was that asked for that. It was Rebecca. Rebecca, could you fire us an email? My personal email is andy.winkup@sustrans.org.uk, or grab hold of me via LinkedIn. I'm there, so you can message me there, and we can have a proper conversation what we can do on that. We are just about out of time for today. If you haven't put which workplace you're from in the chat, it really helps us if you do that. If you are watching us on YouTube right now, if you could like and subscribe this video, that's really, really helpful. Again, if you're watching us on YouTube, you will probably see our Twitter handles appearing along with the email address on the screen. Thank you all very much for coming on today. Thank you, Anna, for helping us out. You've been an absolute star. You can say goodbye now. And thank you to Natalie. You've been amazing. You've been really helpful.
Thank you. Bye.
And to everyone else who's been here, thank you again very much. We are back again next week, and I'm going to look terrible by completely forgetting what we're doing next week. It's carrying heavy stuff. And Natalie, who is our cargo bike czar when it comes to knowing stuff about that, is going to be talking to us all about that. And Jo is going to be talking to us about how panniers changed her life. Thank you again very much for coming. We are Canny Commuting. We will see you here again next week. Goodbye.